Hi, guys. Welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is a fantastic day for an interview. And this interview has had quite a bit of a preamble until we got it together. And I guess one of the biggest things was me being a humanist, someone who thinks of the good and the bad in the world, but who hasn't been touched by Jesus Christ. Now, here I am bringing on Christian Bohlen, who is a man who lives his faith, who has written faith-based books. And I'm sort of thinking, man, who am I to talk to this dude about Christianity, religion, etc. But as with everything, when you think you're on polar opposites, you have to think, well, okay, what are the commonalities? How can you come to the same table? It's like the principle of crisis management, of dealing with very difficult situations, find the commonalities. In this case, Christian and I actually turned out to have had quite a few commonalities. And that's why we're here. So today, I'm absolutely pleased to have Christian Bohlen on my show. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I have been really looking forward to this. I'm excited.
And it is amazing because I got the privilege to read your book. So we both are authors. And Christian, show us your book and
Sure.
that we might as well show it from the word go. Healing the Stormy Marriage. And that speaks to me. And it should speak to pretty much everyone out there because most of the marriages, the majority of them in Western countries are now going broke. They go for divorce. And how sad is that? And
marriages are under assault like nobody's business. And our theme, of course, is around dealing with a spouse who happens to have mental health or addiction issues. And certainly the pandemic didn't do us any favors. Certainly rose the rates of domestic violence and divorce and a lot of mental health issues. Yeah, timely topic.
Very much so. Things are getting worse, and it is a challenge for all of us, even those marriages that do not go into divorce or end up in divorce. I think it is fair to say there is not a single marriage that I've come across in my friendship circles, etc., which was not under severe strain at one stage or the other. So I truly, truly have to say, man, we need to talk.
Yeah.
When I say man, this is more a general. I should say, hey, humans, we need to talk because that applies to girls, boys, those who identify in any other way. So whilst we are using here probably more male and female pronouns. Guys, don't get hung up on that, okay? We are talking about relationships where love is involved, where passion is involved, where hurt feelings are involved. And, well, I guess that defines marriage in the best possible way.
Oh, my,
But one could, of course, say, what the hell? What makes us two qualified to talk about marriage? What makes you qualified to write a book about marriage? Tell us a bit how that book actually came about.
Okay, sure. So my wife and I have been married 36 years, separated 4 times, so living in separate homes, filed for divorce twice. The last of the 4 separations, I actually bought her a house. She's also physically disabled and really didn't have the means to, provide income for herself. So I actually bought her a house thinking that was it, absolutely determined that was it, because she has a severe mental health issue, a couple of them, a little bit debatable, but borderline personality disorder is her primary diagnosis. It's an insidious condition. And the vast majority of relationships that involve this kind of personality disorder break up and end up in divorce. We've been told multiple times that we're kind of a statistical outlier, that we're still together. Mm-hmm. But it was excruciatingly difficult. And my wife, knowing that I write for a living and I was an author, she said, this is a book that deserves to be written to help people. And this, our book is not a memoir. And that, Stefan, having been through it, it's really more of a self-help guide. But the subtitle of the book is Hope and Help for You When Your Loved One Has Mental Health and Addiction Issues. And so it's really about hope. And the main message of hope is the fact that, we're still together. There are others that are still together. And it is our firm belief, and it's captured in this book, that there are things that the spouse who's trying to hold things together, and it's typically the one with fewer issues. By the way, I have my own. I'm a recovering addict. I shared with you just before the show that I was still smoking weed up until like a month before I met my wife. I mean, I still had an addiction. And that was at a time of kind of relapse when I had earlier tried to completely quit it. So I just told the whole world something that very few people know, but what the heck. And I also have bipolar disorder. I have a milder form that's lesser understood, bipolar disorder 2. And, put the two together and you've got really just an awful potential situation where the one will feed into the other. And we experience that whole vicious cycle. So just on an experiential level, I do believe we're qualified to write that book, but I also have worked in a psychology related field. And I'm also a trained instructional designer. I build learning materials for a living. So the psychology of learning, put it all together. I think I feel like that higher power up there prepared me and enabled me to write a very important book to help a lot of people.
How beautiful is that, isn't it? Because those people who have been in the darkness, they feel empowered. They feel driven to actually head into the light and in turn be maybe the candle or the torch or the lighthouse in the darkness and in the storm of others. Because otherwise, why would God or the universe or whoever has a say would put us in those situations where we get challenged, where we have to grow or crumble, or both. So you have been there, and it is those insights that are therefore so valuable. It is all quite nice to talk to someone young in their career who's enthusiastic, who has read everything, and who has had a very sheltered life. And he is now talking to me about the problems and how to deal with them. I just want to strangle that little upstart whilst with you. Well, okay, hang on. The man has got a few scars, some very deep emotional scars, and he deserved them. Not deserved. Deserved is the wrong thing. He carries them with a pride. He has been through the storm. He has weathered it, and now it's time to change and help others maybe to look differently at their lives and the challenges that they are facing. So whilst we talked about the statistics of divorce, let's talk quickly about the statistics about personality disorders. 1 in 10. Okay, 1 in 10 people have got personality disorders. So this is actually not uncommon. And some of them can be quite nice, and some of them can be bitches. So there is personality disorders is when the brain is hardwired to maybe work differently and feel differently, or not feel at all, depending upon the personality disorder. So that's one statistic. The other statistic is the addiction. Welcome, brother. That's all I can say to you, Christian, because 1 in 3 have got a chemical addiction. So 1 in 3. So therefore, if you look at it, if you do a Venn diagrams over overlapping spheres, then you very quickly find there is so many people in that center where all of those things actually apply. So this is a very timely and very important thing that we're talking today, basically dealing with difficult relationships where people don't behave in their best possible way. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody is normal. I'm sure you would agree, being a professional in this space, that that's a pretty loose term. So everybody's got a little screw loose and a few marbles missing somewhere. But this book is, in our experience, is really speaking to where you really feel like you're dealing with somebody that's just not connected to reality, or they're so emotionally unstable that you're just kind of bewildered all the time, and it's causing serious disruption. And we know that addiction can cause both of those things, right? Kind of psychosis and emotional instability, and then of course sneaky and criminal behavior, and you mix it all in there. And so we feel like those people in those situations deserve and need special help. They need special strength and insights to deal with those extreme situations. All marriages are difficult, like you said, but these are extremely difficult. But the great news, in contrast to popular culture, which says that, hey, if my spouse isn't making me happy, that's like I bought a loaf of bread that didn't suit me, I'm going to find a different brand. It's not about the spouse making. I mean, this gets into the whole definition of what is love and what is marriage, maybe a bigger topic. But in preparing for this interview, I was thinking of the song by Foreigner from years ago. I want to know what love is, right? Such an important song. I want to know what love is, and I think I can tell you that certainly from a spiritual perspective, from a Christian perspective, that love is much, much bigger than just finding that right person who is going to make me feel good. That's always going to disappoint. That's never going to pan out. It has to get to this point where we learn what love is really caring about somebody else and being willing enough to accept and work through very disappointing situations, being mistreated and not abused on a sustained basis. We are not promoting that you should just suck up everything and allow yourself to be abused. We don't support that at all. But there is a difference between learning to be patient because you love the other person that much, looking out for their best interest, accepting that maybe your life needs to be different than you thought it needed to be so that you can make the union work. I mean, so it's so different. That's a premise that's baked into our approach, is that it's not just about a relationship just where somebody else makes me happy, and if they don't, just throw it out and find the next one. That's just not the way. But I can tell you that coming out the other end, there is a great deal of joy. There is incredible joy in knowing, like today and for the last 10 years, I mean, the first 25 years were a living hell every few days. You know that from reading our book. But once she got proper treatment through a dialectical behavior therapy, a DBT program, which is so effective for these personality disorders, things really got better. And my wife and I have a loving relationship that I think is probably a lot healthier and more stable than a lot of couples have. So there's kind of like a yay, wow, it really did work out and we're really happy today. I mean, I really believe that, even though there are rough spots, that's kind of the message of hope, is that, between the power, this higher power, which we never would have made it even past the first year without that, and pursuing proper, well-researched psychology principles and practices and things like that, put them together, and you really got a magic formula for finding your way through and getting the strength that you need. That's really, in a nutshell, what we feel is out there for people.
It's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful and very well put. For everyone out there, let's just regroup for a moment, because if you think about yourself, you know that there are moments when you're just calm, focused, in the space, and whatever you touch, it will work. That is just these Zen moments where we are just perfectly there and clear. And that's lovely. Now, yeah. I don't know about your life, but my life is not often in those moments. But there are these moments there. And I'm trying to foster them and work on them, but that's another story. So that's sort of a really, really nice place to be. Unfortunately, then there is this other level of where we most often probably hang around, where we are stressed. And so from Zen and calm and everything to actually we're stressed. And you can imagine that your behavior changes a little bit. Now, we're not saying anything about personality disorders. We're just talking about everyone out there.
Yeah.
So Zen, good. Stress, okay, makes us grow. And then there's distress. And that's the next level up. Can you imagine that your behavior changes depending upon in which kind of level you find yourself in? So you've got that just normal behavior where when you're stressed or overwhelmed, maybe you come out as not such a nice person. My wife is perfect in that, and I am perfect in that. And when we married, I promised her never boring. That was my wedding vow to her. I should have cut my tongue out at that moment because if we never had anything boring. But with that also, I mean, bloody hell, the challenges that came our way in our marriage, you don't want to have them on your worst enemy. Okay. So, but here you go. It was what it was. And you have this issue, and we haven't even talked about addiction and haven't even talked about mental health problems in me and my wife. But you can imagine when you're constantly in stress and distress, well, that's not a nice thing to be. Can you imagine that you suddenly fight like cats and dogs? And it's crazy. And you think, who have you married? She is a lunatic. And she probably thought the same about me. Okay, now add in then the ups and downs of life, add in then depression, PTSD, anxiety. Imagine then that maybe your core beliefs that are so deep down inside and that were laid down when you were a little kiddo, that they might have been screwed up. Now, so you've got screwed up core beliefs, screwed up life, screwed up circumstances, add in a few mental health problems. Ta-da! You might as well pour gasoline on the fire and throw some fireworks in, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you expect your relationship to work. You're kidding me.
Isn't that kind of the premise behind that long-running TV show Survivor, where you put a bunch of people on an island and limit their food, make them hot and uncomfortable, put them under all kinds of unnatural pressures, and you're going to see fireworks. And that's kind of what our marriages are like. But I guess I like the one phrase that you hinted at here, and that is that I didn't sign up for this. And that's real common in the first month or year of a new marriage. It's like, holy cow, I had no idea. I did not sign up for this. Well, if there's this kernel of love, that Zen moment, multiple Zen moments during your courtship, in the early marriage, where there's this incredible connection, where there's this real love for this person that's somewhere in all of that messiness, then our hope is that one of the spouses at least will say, it's okay, I didn't sign up for this, but I'm going to seek that higher power. I'm going to learn some new skills. I'm going to be the best person I can be. It's going to start with me. I mean, that's kind of the premise of our book too. You can't change the other person, but you can change your skill level and be the best version of you can be, and trust that somehow through all of that, especially again, if you're believing in this higher power, then things will work out in a almost a supernatural way that you really can't foresee or control. And by the way, I do want to make clear that this book called Healing the Stormy Marriage, it is a Christian-based book. For those who are not into religion or into Christianity, there probably are better resources out there. The only low reviews that we've got from the book are those who said it was too religious for me, or they just didn't want any, they didn't realize it was a Christian book. So I just want to make that clear, because we weave in probably 60% of the book is deeply spiritual, Bible-based content. But for example, I want to talk about some topics, because I don't believe just inspirational Bible scriptures and nuggets are going to get you through these kind of tough relationships. It isn't. You've got to learn some real skills. And so you'll recall that some of the skills we talked about were like what they call emotional regulation, becoming emotionally self-aware. That's such an early skill that you need to learn, because you're being bombarded. And Stefan, I don't know if you'd like me to share a couple of like vignettes of the craziness that I experienced, but
of course,
just for people to realize how hard this can get for folks. But when you have, like, literally in our first 10 years, we never went more than 2 weeks without a major emotional blowout. Usually it was every third day. And I never really knew what triggered it. I never knew what caused it and what kept it going. My wife would not let it go. She couldn't stop fussing and arguing. And she would follow me around the house. Even when a psychologist, it came, we started to see a counselor, and at some point he said, look, say red flag. Either one of you say red flag when you feel like it's gone nowhere and you need to stop talking. And the first time I said that, she stopped just long enough to remember, why would I have said those two words? And she just kept right on going. It was completely no effect. And she, later we learned that she doesn't hear words the way people say them. There's stuff not firing correctly. She's not perceiving meaning. And there's all kinds of internal beliefs, like you were talking about, these core beliefs that get in the way. So we're talking like this constantly, but I'm just not understanding that as so I have all these emotions of frustration and so forth that I had to learn to recognize and accept. I had to be okay with feeling angry. I had to get to the root of what's causing the anger. And this also we addressed in our book about feeling accused. When I feel accused, it's going to create frustration and anger. When I feel guilty about something, or when I feel powerless, these are the roots that are the primary emotions that trigger the things that we just say, oh, I'm angry. But what I learned was that if I can identify, and you probably know Brene Brown has a recent new, very popular book, Atlas of the Heart, where she says that the ability to manage emotion is directly connected to your understanding of the words and the meaning of those emotions. Like, if you can identify an emotion, you have so much more power to regulate it. And so those are some skills that we talk about, because otherwise you just turned into a bottled up guy that just stuffs them, and you just feel worse and worse and you freak out. That's not helpful, right?
Oh, please. Been there so many times. Get the scars, get the t-shirt, the ripped t-shirt. Okay. God, no, you described my marriage. You absolutely described my marriage. And it is, however, I loved it that you were pointing to the drivers, which are the core beliefs. You've got an acronym for them. You've got a mnemonic for them, haven't you?
Yes. So I leveraged research from others that I've cited. These are leading researchers, world-renowned folks in many cases. And this one is a book called Key Core Beliefs, and it's the AGRUP, AGRUP, accused, guilty, rejected, unloved, and powerless. And those 5 nasties are like the snakes that are hiding, and we don't usually see them. They just bite us, and then we get mad. But I have learned that as I am in tune with those, and usually for me, it's powerlessness. I get so frustrated. I can't control. There's just so many issues that I can't control. It's taken superhuman patience to deal with it. And that's where the connection to God is so important. I just never would have had the kind of ability to be patient and loving. I don't know how folks do it without God of some kind. And by the way, Stefan, I read your book too. I thought it was just exceptional. I absolutely loved it. And I loved how it made it so accessible, this concept of higher power. You gave readers every opportunity to say, don't worry about the whole God label or anything like that, but be open to the idea that maybe there is something outside of yourself that can actually help. And I think that's such a healthy, fair-minded way to look at it. And, you gave so many very precise, concrete, detailed examples of how to apply what was in the 12 Steps program, stuff that when I worked in juvenile corrections myself and I got exposed to it, I recognized so many similarities with what the Bible teaches. Honestly, there's a ton of it's the same. So, I mean, it just makes sense. That guy, Bill, the founder of AA, was like a prophet. I mean, this guy was like tuned in.
So first of all, thank you for the roses. I must say that was the book that we we're talking about, My Steps to Sobriety. And it's a lovely book. It's out there in electronic form, in hard copy, and soon as an audiobook. So guys, we've showed you ours. Now up to you guys. Now these are valuable resources. They were written by men who have suffered too long to now just keep quiet and just write it down to experience. We've written our experiences down and the things that I guess I would have loved to know when I was in the darkness. And that's where my drive came from. I think the key thing, though, is the sheer fact that you guys are now listening to this podcast or watch this YouTube video means that you're so outside of your comfort zone that something in that title or in that picture has shaken you, has grabbed you emotionally. That's why you're here. And for that, I commend you, because you're so far outside of your comfort zone that you have decided enough is enough and that you're taking action. And this taking action is so important. This taking action that you're listening here and you're trying to suss out, what these two guys are talking about, that rings very much a bell. Brilliant. You're coming to the table. You're opening up. You're starting to learn. You're starting a journey that is not easy. Because when you talk about relationships, and when you say, oh, my wife is a bitch, she does this, she does that, oh my God, and tell you what she did last week. Well, yeah, okay. Shall we actually talk? Let you simmer down. Why don't you write me a letter? Put it all down in writing, what a bitch she is, okay. And now that you've done that, now maybe let's talk together. So give me one example. Oh, she did that, okay. Then maybe the next step would be, okay, what was your role in all that? What was the situation that you really like when it all started? What did she actually say? What did you hear? How did you react to her statement? Could it be that you misunderstood her? That maybe this Abgur or whatever, however you get that mnemonic in your head, was there any of these little snakes biting you? And for me, that's constant. Absolutely freaking constant. And sometimes I can see the snakes. I can see these little buggers coming out, but only when I'm in my Zen moment, when I'm calm. When I'm in stress or in distress, God forbid, I can't see the snakes. They just come out, they bite me, and in turn, I bite back. So that's where most of our rows happen. When my wife and I are tired, when we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. These are sort of the triggers for drinking. These are also potent triggers for me to act like an idiot and rip my wife's head off and really let her have it because she deserves it. You're right. As if that ever got someone somewhere.
Well, you hit on something very important there about the sobriety, that those who are trying to stay sober, in my case, it was drugs. Those who are in these stressful relationships, to learn these skills, it's not only going to help you, maintain your relationship, it's going to help you stay clean. So important. I mean, they're going to serve both purposes. So I certainly hope that in listening to this, that folks will say, you know what, maybe it's not crazy. And I think for men in particular, there's a macho element of this. That I shouldn't have to deal with this. I'm getting suckered here. I'm being a little wuss. I shouldn't have to be talked to by my spouse like this. And there absolutely is that kind of macho thing. And also, men statistically won't read books like this as much as women will, who will seek out this kind of help, hoping that the men listeners to this will be open to the fact that, you know what, the love and the peace that's possible in a relationship is so much more valuable and so worth it that it's really worth taking a second look and saying, maybe there is a different way to look at love, that the throwaway mentality of our culture really isn't the right way to look at things, and that God or this higher power can help me beyond my own capabilities.
That's true. And call it a God of your understanding. Yeah. And by using it like that, it can be a Christian God or the God in your case. Does it mean that your book and my book don't apply to someone who believes in Islam? Well, it does. When you said that 60% of your book were faith-based, I read your book, and normally faith-based books, they rub me up a bit the wrong way, I guess. There is just because I have not been touched by Jesus Christ. So therefore, some of the things don't make, or didn't make sense in the past, I should say. Nowadays, I look for similarities, and I look for, okay, let's jump over the shadow of I don't believe, but actually, what is the message that is coming across here? Just because you put it in Christian words, what is the message that really is behind those words? And often enough, I have to say, well, actually, I completely agree with these words, or with those messages, shall I say. The way you have packaged it is just a little bit different. It just so happens that your imaginary friend is not my imaginary friend. But that's about it, okay? The message is there. And I think that is what we need to learn. That applies equally to a relationship. How many times did I find myself in the situation that my wife was firing a full broadside at me? And in the past, I would have immediately fired back, and Third World War. And nowadays, things are different. Most of the times when I'm in Zen and when I'm in stress, I can listen to what is behind that broadside. And it typically, a classic example, what was it? Last night, that's right. I just came home tired after 12 hours straight work. And my kids had cooked something, brilliant. So I added, my wife came in, and it was, I could have immediately reacted. And in reality, she has had the same 12-hour day. She had, including travel, she actually had a 14-hour day. She had eaten only crap. She was tired, stressed, and just the way she came out was just a sign of her distress. It was not a sign of disrespect. It was not a sign of, I don't know, any of the core beliefs that could have been triggered. So last night, I just saw it for what it was. And for that, I was very grateful. I could have very easily exploded myself. But that is the skill. That is what happens when you actually truly, hand on heart, stop your own emotions, stop your own ego for a moment. Actually listen, what is she saying? She is hungry. Yeah. Okay, make her a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Just a little act of service. If she lets you, hug her. Just give her a long hug. But don't say a word. Don't anything. Let her rant. But if she lets you hug, then you know what she really needs is love. And someone saying it's going to be okay. And it's those kind of things. Stop your own ego for a moment and look at the whole situation more holistically. And you might be amazed how your life can change.
That's a great example of a simple skill, a simple approach that just works. And there are multiple sets of techniques that just work. It's not like somebody has to read an entire encyclopedia to get better at their relationship. I think that's a great example. And how often do we just skip the idea of just saying, I love you, and calmly hugging somebody? And it says volumes, doesn't it?
100%. And you need to figure out if your partner is indeed in that group. And I would say the majority of people are. They just love a hug. Other people hate a hug under these moments. My wife is one of them. It is probably, it's a double-edged sword. I might actually cut through the whole crap and she calms down, or I fire. That's right. The flames go up. So, but then again, I'm quite happy to try. From now and then, humor works. Most of the time, it doesn't in my relationship because she hates my humor. Then again, there are times when you just need to work on your marriage, work on your relationship, and learn what works. There is no. We can give you examples, but you need to use those examples and work them out. And God forbid, you could see. As an humanist, I realize how often I use the word God. So it's quite interesting, actually. So it's always good, such interviews with you, Christian, to actually sort of think, maybe. So coming back to the topic, would it not be amazing if you tried to figure those things out together? Wouldn't it not be an amazing journey of growth that you actually try to sit down and say, hey, look, yesterday, can we just tease that apart? Not bring it all up and feel the same emotions, but maybe figure out what was upsetting you so much? And what would you have wished for, how I would respond to you being upset? Ask such a question. You might be amazed about the answer. And
in moments of calm, it's a wonderful thing when a couple can debrief, if you will, what happened. In my case, it's no exaggeration to say that was rare, and it would almost always lead to a follow-on. It just always triggered additional fears, and it was years, many years. I would say it was 20 years later before we could really reliably, meaningfully debrief stuff. It was just a skill that my wife is just not in her repertoire. And that was incredibly frustrating for me. So while I love the suggestion, and I know that it's the right goal for couples to do exactly what you said, if the listeners are in a situation where they feel like, well, I won't work with my spouse, that still isn't the end of the road. You know, the old advice around marriage is 50-50. Oh, I'm waiting for you to give your 50%. I know I gave my 50%. Are you giving your 50%? And that's bad advice. It's 100-100. So if I'm doing the very best I can, I shouldn't be watching too closely whether my spouse has given her 100. I think that helps a long way. And just keep focusing on myself, give the best that I can. That might feel so unfair. Well, that's kind of too bad. You know, there's a lot of hard, unpleasant lessons that we learn in this journey. And one of them is it ain't going to be fair. It's not going to feel good often, but it's going to be worth it.
And it's also fair to say that at the time when you're going through, everything looks different, everything feels different, your own emotional roller coaster changes the way you look at things. And it is often with hindsight that you think, whoa, I've been really behaving like an idiot there. So your own contribution to the whole dilemma is not apparent when it happens because your feelings are hurt or your core beliefs are challenged or something is happening that really puts you onto the barricades. And that's not the time to think, but it is your privilege to reflect on those things, but only when you actually take time to do so. I think it is so important that in our daily life, we bring in time to reflect and to just sit still. If you call that self-love and a moment in the jacuzzi or in a spa or whatever, that is a beautiful way of putting it. If you call that prayer or a guided meditation or just meditation, however you call it, just get off your hamster wheel for a moment and actually take some time out and see what thoughts are coming through. Because your brain has a wonderful way of giving you the answers if you ask the right questions. And we often don't take the time.
We don't. My wife actually suggested I get into yoga. She was the first one that brought it to my attention. And I was fortunate that close to where we lived, there was a really good yoga instructor. And it made a huge difference in my life. I mean, yoga, not as a religion, but just as a discipline, the whole mind, body, and spirit getting synced and relaxing, and the whole mindfulness, which is a big thing right now. We mention in our book, because mindfulness is such a healthy, wonderful practice. It makes a huge difference. I mean, again, it's about me. It's about me taking care of me, because if I'm not healthy, if I'm not feeling like I'm feeling pretty well and have some kind of joy in my life and so forth, I'm never going to last. I mean, we do not promote in the least bit that surviving a marriage like this should just be this slave-like slog of misery and just sucking it up for years and years. I mean, that's not like it was. And by the way, we had many, many good times among all the hard times. And there was many Zen moments where we felt the love, we were reunited in what we really believed about each other, but also that I learned to be healthier and better and take care of myself through the emotions, through the yoga, through working out. I started working out more. And for me, like weightlifting was like just fabulous. I just felt amazing. Taking better care of myself. So all these other things, the hobbies and all this stuff, all that plays into it. So it is amazing. And I don't mean to sound like a sales pitch. I have kind of a aversion to ever sounding like a sales guy, but I am enthused about what is in our book, because it's honestly, it's the very best of whatever we learned, researched, experienced, and applied in our own life. And we just know that it works, and it's not that thick. So that's the encouraging part. It didn't take that long to read, did it, Stefan?
Nope. It's something like 4 hours, I would say, gives you the thing. But this is not a race. This is not just something where you zoom, I've done it. So now, how do I get better? No. Yeah. And as with every good book, you will read it and certain things jump out at you because you're ready to hear the message. Because there are many, many messages in there, okay? Yeah. In your book as well as in mine. And if I sort of look at it here in my book, that center bit here, these are sort of things of self-love where you can actually do so much for yourself. Front is sort of all, how to, it's shedding a bit more light on the journey of alcohol and me and alcohol and you in turn. Yeah. But this is the magic. This is the self-love. This is tips and action plans, how you can get yourself maybe just a little bit in a better place. So therefore, whatever challenges happen, then, you're better prepared. So that's self-love in the center. And then this one here, the end of the book, these are all challenges that will hit you. That might be a toxic relationship. That might be an idiot at work. That might be financial trouble. That might, all kind of things. I'm going through them and give you maybe some ideas how to prepare yourself for that and deal with that. But the center bit, the self-love, is the core to you being able to deal with things in such a way that you don't just shoot from the hip and then ask questions. It's the shooting from the hip, the hot-headedness. Doesn't
usually work.
Oh, please. So many, the best email that you have ever regretted kind of thing. Yes, I'm the master of them, okay? So, and it is what it is. We are all humans, guys. We are all humans. And we have got choices. We have got the power to make that choice, but you need to learn how to do it. It's just as much as you have got the power to ride a bike. If you've never learned how to ride a bike, it's going to be very traumatic. And in the start, it's going to be hard. But guess what? Once you've learned how to ride a bike, it's much easier to get around, isn't it? Well, it's the same with a marriage. It's the same with a relationship. There's certain things you need to learn, but no one's teaching you them. So yeah, if you constantly fall off the bike, and no surprise that it hurts. Okay, so maybe find someone who knows how to ride a bike, who can show you a bit. Hey, maybe find someone who has gone through a really shitty marriage. Okay, I should say. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm making point. Yeah, I was pointing to Christian, and then I had to reverse that and said, "Nah, it's actually my marriage was just a shit." So here, come on, mine. And it is beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful journey, guys, and we invite you along to it, because here is your way forward. Here is a new world, like a parallel universe, where actually throwaway comments don't lead to a armed conflict within your kitchen, but rather to understanding, to acts of service, acts of love, which in turn can be incredibly disarming if used wisely, and that is powerful. If you could just stamp out any row from the word go, would that not be a superpower?
Oh my!
Exactly.
Oh my! And you do learn those skills. You do learn to watch out for them and to take care of yourself in the process. And may I share one other thought that often plagues people in troubled relationships? And I'll credit the world-renowned researchers of 7 Principles of Successful Marriage, Gottman and Silver. I cite this in the book. I thought it was such an important insight that successful marriages are not marriages that are devoid of all conflict. That all marriages have things that, and I love this analogy, it's kind of like dealing with a pesky back. So I've got a back injury that maybe I've been dealing with for 40 years. I don't like it. It's always there, and I've just learned to accept it. And a lot of marriages have 3, 10, who knows how many things that would be kind of like having a bad back. They're not deal breakers. They're not going to crush you, but we do need to differentiate between things that truly have to be dealt with through properly setting boundaries and saying, this is unacceptable to me. I cannot live with this. And we have a whole chapter devoted to that. It's such an important skill. But there's the other stuff that we just have to get better at saying, it's the pesky bad back. I can deal with that. And there's things about me that drive my wife crazy. There's things about her that we just know they're there. They're going to happen. And I think that can be a huge stress reliever for people if they say, hey, just because we have those doesn't mean we have a lousy marriage, because these researchers identified that all marriages have them, all of them.
And it is those marriages or those stresses that make our marriage stronger. I strongly believe in that without the challenges that I and my wife endured separately and together, our marriage would never be this strong. There's this beautiful interview of a couple who was married something like 75 years, extremely long. Wow. And they asked them, of course, hey, what was the secret to your marriage? And both of them said very calmly, we come from a generation where we don't throw things just away because the use by date is gone. We work on things, we mend things, we keep things, we maintain things. And that is also what they meant with their marriage. They maintain the marriage. There is this principle of the emotional bank account. When you just take out, guess what? At some stage, you end up in trouble. But what was to happen if you start giving little acts of love every day without being prompted? Clean up the kitchen. leave a little love note somewhere where he or she can find it. Those little things that are not expected, but they are suddenly there. How beautiful would that be? I know. Can you imagine that if you start every day a little bit in your relationship? There's a beautiful other principle. It's called the 5-minute gardener. And the 5-minute gardener refers to the fact that every day from now on, you spend 5 minutes in the garden. Never more, never less. And it doesn't matter. Just do it 5 minutes. Can you imagine that after a week, you would see already a change in your garden? Could you imagine that after a month or even 3 months, that your garden would look very different? That there's probably heaps more plants in there. There are probably no weeds there. That is probably, everything is growing in abundance. Could you imagine that? Yeah, I bet you it would be the same if you were to try to do the same in our marriage, in our relationship.
Yeah.
The 5-minute gardener. The 5-minute husband. Maybe I should write that book. The 5-minute husband.
It's a wise concept. Yeah,
isn't it? Hey, I think I just came onto something there. Okay, no, that's brilliant. Oh man, Christian, you have written an amazing book, and you were saying that those people who were that some people gave it a negative review because it was 60% faith-based. It didn't strike me as such. I was able to read the messages in your book, and therefore, guys, if you're out there, even if Jesus Christ has not touched your life, or if you believe in another god or other gods, it doesn't matter. Actually, if you just look at the message of the words, not the way they are described in religious terms, this is such a good book. This is such a good logical demystification of marriage problems. That is what I loved about it. It was so honest and transparent, and it was written by someone who has been in the trenches and still is. So therefore, there is decades of experience there, both as a man, as a victim, as a survivor, however you put yourself, whatever label you carry at the moment. I invite you to read this book and become a thriver, not survivor. Survivor is just scraping through, but a thriver of someone who has actually learned from the darkness that he or she was in and is now prospering, because you have planted all those seeds of self-love, of learning the true meaning of the principles of integrity, transparency, humility. For most of us, we are just paying lip service. I think that is my conviction. I certainly had no idea about the meaning for much of my life. Nowadays, I actually practice them. Extreme ownership. I take action. And that's beautiful. So, guys.
It feels good.
Isn't it?
May I pull up the image of the book? Would that be helpful?
Please.
Okay. All right. So anybody watching the video version of this, I think it can be helpful to see the actual cover of the book, but also the URL. It's a custom URL that takes you straight to a page that describes the book. It's stormymarriage.info, not .com or .nz, but stormymarriage.info. And you can learn a lot more about it.
Thank you so much, Christian, for writing this book. It's a book it's a book I had never read had I not decided to bring you on to this show. So I read it as part of my due diligence, and yet here we are, me raving about it, honestly. And obviously that shows me that maybe there were quite a few things in my marriage that maybe I could do better, or that we could address in a better way. So here you go. Just be open, guys. Be open to those things that sort of flutter into your life, and just be open to be curious. Be curious to open these doors that are just ajar. Open them a bit further and have a look inside. You never know what surprise awaits you. And that's exactly what happened with me with today's show. So I'm very grateful. I'm incredibly grateful that you came on board. And I think actually my wife is Christian. I'm not. But so that I think what I will suggest to her is that we both read the book again. So she the first time and me again, and maybe read a chapter and have a chat and a coffee. And maybe have a chat. Little advice. Have a chat and a coffee somewhere else in a public place. Okay. That's often the best way of doing it, because then it's very unlikely that the explosions happen as much as they could in your kitchen. So little advice there, and you can actually focus on talking. So, it is, I think this might actually be something where I can bring my marriage to the next level. So thank you. Exactly.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I love this conversation. I think we touched on really a lot of very, very important and hopefully hope-inducing topics for folks. And I wish the best for everybody out there struggling. I know the pain is so intense, but things can get better.
Indeed, but they get better through action. And action needs to start with us first. And if we're in extreme distress, if you're in the airplane and the oxygen masks come down, you have to put them on yourself first. You need to look after yourself first and take action in that, and then take action when it comes to a relationship. So get Christian's book, and whilst you're there, get my book, because they actually quite nicely sort of gel in a strange way, because we have both seen the principles that work to change someone into a better human being. And guess what? You don't need to be a rocket scientist here to figure out that there are many commonalities in order to achieve a better yourself, to get sober, to become financially wealthy, become physically healthy, to have a better relationship. It all starts with doing the basic works, the foundation of looking after yourself. So come along on the journey. It's a beautiful journey. It's a journey that is so surprising and will forever change your life. And my educated guess is it will change to the better. So brilliant.
Agreed.
Christian, thank you so much for coming on to my show. I had an amazing interview today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for having me.
And you out there, look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.